Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Aziza Sanginova, and today my presentation is starting about the Azerbaijani Renaissance on the Golden Ages. So, the introduction is being analyzed from the cultural aspect of view. The subject brings forward to geographical, historical, ethnographic, and psychological factors. So, let's keep going. The introduction investigates the synthesis of artistic styles and architecture, combining its self-orientation value. Azerbaijani cultural heritage continues to expand its way to cultural integration. From this point of view, one of the most important issues is to study Azerbaijani cultural heritage in the context of oriental culture. The main task of studying of the Azerbaijani culture and art is context in the Middle East artistic traditions. It's twofold. It is to reveal the study of relationships of the Azerbaijani art with the East on the other hand, and to reveal the contribution of the cultural heritage of the nation to the world art ratio, and to show the stability and magnificence of the Azerbaijani art. So when we speak about the cultural partnership factors, the geographic, historical, and ethnographic and religion and cultural factors are the first one to be researched. The characteristics feature of the spiritual culture of the Near and the Middle Eastern nations is that being occupied by the Arabs in the medieval ages, this nation still preserves several peculiarities of the Arabic culture. So these are a lot of Arabic and Persian words in the language of the region. All nations except those who speak Turkic and Kurmanj languages still use the Arabic alphabet. So the education system, literature, and art of this nation have been influenced by Islam. Eastern Islamic culture is closely connected with the three elements which created it. So this equally with the Arabs, there are Persian and Turks who contributed the same amount of effort and sometimes even more to development of Islamic science and the mystery. So keep going. Um, when speaking of the Eastern musical culture impact of Azerbaijani music, it is necessary to know that music in Arab and Muslim world is not simply music, but contains itself coded symbols. It is created in close connected with other areas of art, such as poetry, fiction, and architecture. This style of integration of interactions of separate areas, especially the art of thinking, is reflected in the structure. The Middle Ages were the period of foundation is classic written system in the East. Achievement of Turkic, Persian, Arabic, and the other speaking nations was synthesized. According to the written sources, the classic written system used Arabic, Turkish, Persian, Tajik, and Indian languages. Various ethnic and national elements created integration in the Oriental system. Thank you very much for your attention.
Hello everyone, I'm Khalif Razazadeh and I'm going to talk about the part of Azerbaijan, the role of Azerbaijan in the Islamic Golden Age in the period of Renaissance of Azerbaijan. So starting with and what happened during this period. So about this topic, we first start about the spread of the religion of Islam in Azerbaijan. Means that we are going to talk about Azerbaijan as a subject of Arab Caliphate. During this period that was happened between the 7th and 10th centuries, Arabs immediately started to spread their own religious belief, the religion of Islam, in the countries and nations that they were ruling, as well as in Azerbaijan too. And actually, this process, the Islamization process, has comprehensively affected the nations and countries as well as Azerbaijan, like from cultural field, social field, and the others, and also historical too. And therefore and also this also meant that this was also meaning that the ignorance of ignoring the main religion beliefs of the other nation of these nations. And so there in Azerbaijan and in the other nations between as the subject of Arab Caliphate, some hesitations and counter ideologies has appeared against the Islamization process and Arabs. And after a few years, this hesitations actually changed and became rebellions against Arab Caliphate and Islamization process. And one of these greatest rebellions are the rebellion of Karamis under the leadership of Babek, which was in the area of Azerbaijan. And this rebellion is actually one of the greatest rebellion in Arab Caliphate that was happened between the years 818 and 838, which Babek and his warriors defeated 6 huge armies of the Arab Caliphate, and was one of the reasons. Although they did not last long, this rebellion was one of the main reasons which actually brought the end of Arab Caliphate in the future. But actually, the Islamization process has culturally affected these countries too, and it has also positive sides too. For example, during the period of Muslim culture that was between the 8th and 10th centuries in Azerbaijan, the development in social-economic relationships and making and relationships was observed in Azerbaijan and at also other fields too. In this period, there were many schools and many schools named Mejids was opened in Azerbaijan, and Azerbaijan science, art, literature, and the other fields was also improved too. In Mejids, the children of rich people were studying, and history, geography, geography, art, like autonomy was also taught to the children, as well as the religious subjects and the grammar of Arabic language. That's all. Thanks for paying attention.
Since the mid of 8th century, achievements of Arabic poetry and its main forms, ghazals, qasidas, tractates, works of poetry, came to be one of the major cultural realities in Azerbaijan. According to Krachkovsky, Arabic literature and culture were forced to be maintained in all nations subordinated to caliphate. In his work, Book of Poets and Poetry, Ibn Qutayba pointed out that there were many Azerbaijanis among the poets of Medina. Musa Shakhavat, one of the prominent poets during the rule of Umayyads, began his literary activities in the 80s of the 7th century. Although Arabic language became the language of science and literature, Azerbaijani folklore consisted of possessing Turkic nation folklore into their own folklore. Greatest movement of Azerbaijani folklore was represented in the emergence of the Book of Dada Gorkut, which was a part of Oghusname and delivered in the written form to this present day. Genius Azerbaijani poet and thinker Nizami Ganjavi brought new ideas to the history of artistic culture of the mankind. Nizami became known for his 5 poems, also called the Hamsa, and Hamsa visualized that Nizami was very well aware of the events and personalities in the Near and Middle East, also expressed his opinions on them. In that time, humanistic principles also formed in literature, and the works of Imadeddin Nasimi grabbed attention into humanism, secularity, and democratism in Azerbaijani literature. Strengthening of Islam in Azerbaijan determined a new direction in architecture. New mosques, madrasas, caravansaras, baths were built on the ground of early constructive traditions. Certain impressions on the design of religious structures of 7th and 10th centuries may be found in Juma Masjid in Shamaha and in one mosque in Aqsa. Written sources and archaeological findings also prove that there were a certain network of water supply systems developed in Azerbaijan. The materials of archaeological findings also proved that ceramic makings was in great progress in Azerbaijan. Cups, lamps, baskets, and other ceramic things were prepared by potters and possessed a very special beauty. In 12th And for 13th century, Azerbaijan exported many carpets to foreign countries. Those carpets were attracting attention to their ornaments and decorations, which were also reflected in the works of foreign painters from Europe. Azerbaijani folk music was also under some influence of Arabic features because they were also found in the music culture of Azerbaijan. But its distinctiveness was also preserved. Nevertheless, Islamic law caused the decrease of painting and graphic art in Azerbaijan, but it could never stop development of art in Azerbaijan.
Thank you, Nilay. Now I'm going to give you information about the Azerbaijan culture and architecture. 11th and 12th century are considered the most productive and richest period of the cultural development of Azerbaijan. In this period, many madrasas, mosques, and palaces were built throughout the country's cities. Distinguished academics from Azerbaijan have lived in the numerous towns of the Caliphate. I will provide a facilitator in Shirvani's example, who spent 30 years of his life studying astronomy and devoted his life to the study of the cosmic bodies. In the history of the philosophy of Azerbaijan, Behmanyar Ibn Marston played also an important role. In many institutions and courtrooms, his work on logic and philosophy has been kept. Azerbaijan architecture. In this age, there are many masterpieces like Fortress Walls of Baku, Şamakhı, Beylegan, Gence, Maiden Tower in Baku, Memnuniyet and Yusuf bin Cüzeyir in Nakhchivan, Khudafarin and Zulfa, the bridges of Khudafarin and Zulfa were distinguished with their beauty. In that period, also two types of literature were present, oral and written forms. The mythological components were formed through oral literature, but the written literature were particularly representing life's reality. Moreover, Ode, Qasida, Rubai were the types of the court literature that evolved in Azerbaijan during this period, and Azerbaijan's Persian language poetry school had such notable representative that I am going to show now. Khagani Shirvani. Yes, Khagani Shirvani was the first poetic of the Azerbaijan Renaissance who contributed to poem, a poetic, social, and humanistic substance. And Getran Tebrizi, he achieved popularity at Gence and Nakhchivan's palaces, was the other famous exponent of court poetry. Abdullah Gencevi has been named for the famous court poet to Shirvan Shah for his deep understanding and his poetics. Shirvani, for a certain amount of time, he served at Shirvan Shah, and as an astronomer, he also earned recognition and success. Mahsud Gencevi, she was known not only in Azerbaijan but also in the Middle East as a social moral rubais of talented poetries. But among them, Nizami Gencevi was particularly notable as poet, philosopher, and humanist. Nizami's heritage shaped golden age of Azerbaijan culture and became one of the classics of court poetry. Nizami became famous with his prime poems in the world. These are Hamza, Khosrow and Shirin, Leila and Mejnun, Seven Beauties, and Iskendername. Literary culture and socio-political view of the time was reflected more brightly, and progressive ideas of Renaissance were emerged strongly in poetry. Nizami Gencevi brought new ideas to the history of the artistic culture of mankind in rich form and content of Eastern poetry and created magnificent monuments of Renaissance literature. His creativity is unique, and studying the poet's creativity, it becomes apparent that Nizami had deep knowledge in ancient Greek, Indian, Chinese, and Arabic philosophy. Now, Raf will give you detailed information about this topic.
Hello everyone, today I'm going to talk about the writers and the philosophers. Our first philosopher is Nizami Gencevi. Nizami Gencevi is a poet and a writer of Azerbaijani poetry. Also, Nizami's heroic and romantic poems influenced Persia, as well as Azerbaijan, Afghanistan, Turkey, and the other countries. The poems of Nizami, like Iskandername, Treasure of Secrets, Seven Beauties, the heroes of such works are still known in all Islamic countries as well as in the world also. In 1991, UNESCO declared the Year of Nizami in the honor of 850th anniversary of the poet. Our next philosopher is Khagani Shirvani. Khagani Shirvani is a prominent representative of classical Azerbaijani literature and also a poet-philosopher. His social philosophical works include the poets like Shinia, Arrest, also Tofat Ali Ragain, Ruins of Medine. By the decision of the Cabinet of Ministry, Shirvani's works were included in the list of the authors declared the state property of Azerbaijan Republic. Our third philosopher, Masati Gencevi, she's a great Azerbaijani portraitist who lived in the 11th and the 12th century. By the decision of UNESCO General Conference, decided to celebrate 900th anniversary of Masati Gencevi worldwide. Our final philosopher, Dante Alighieri. He's an Italian poet, a founder of the Italian literature language. He studied at the University of Bologna, and he studied law and philosophy in there. His name was included in list of 100 most studied humans in the history. And the elimination of the Dante work was a poem named Divine Comedy. Thanks for listening. Thanks for your attendance.
So now I would like to talk about science in Azerbaijan in Renaissance. So when thinking of that period, we should understand that Azerbaijan was conquered by the Arabic Caliphate, and the influence was really strong on the general population. The Islamization process was taking place, the Arabic scripture was adopted in governmental issues, in literature, in science, and education. And eventually, all of this Arabization process appeared to positively affect the development of science in Azerbaijan. When thinking why would it happen this way, we should understand that the Arabic Caliphate was going through its golden age in science. So during that period, Arabic Caliphate would take the scriptures previously written by the Hebrew, Greek, Roman, Persian, Chinese, and other writers, and they would translate them, they would analyze them, and they would use this information. All of this would eventually result in the very strong progress in the science and all aspects of the science, including medicine, technology, arts, literature, and others. And the same happened to Azerbaijan being a part of the Muslim world. Azerbaijani people would study in Arabic, and they would have this access to all of this knowledge. They would go to cities like Medina, Baghdad, Kufa, etc., and they would study there. They would have access to Arabic scriptures from different parts of the globe, and they would have this unique opportunity to share their knowledge, ideas, their writings in Arabic, which was really popular in that time, and they could be well known in the whole Muslim world. So knowing that, we understand that that period positively affected the development of Azerbaijan in science, and we had many well-known scientists that contributed a lot to the medicine, literature, technology, arts, legislative studies that we have today. And those are
Isa Tiflisi, Jafar Maragi, and others. Thank you for your attention.
The Islamic Golden Age was a time of cultural, economics, and scientific affluence in Islamic history, traditionally spanning the 8th through 14th century. Actually, for the Azerbaijan, it was a time when Shah Ismail got to the power. He changed everything and flourished the country. As everything developed throughout the century, the literature, architecture, and artwork take considerable place in flourishing of the Azerbaijan. There were big influence of big personalities as different nationalities. Nizami Ganjavi, Imaddin Nasimi, Mahaddin Fizuli, and so on. Based on architectural finding, Islam played a big role in the case of architecture. As an example, it can be found in Juma Masjidi in Shamakha. As everything developed, art also took place in it. Craft making, carpets, pottery, folk music, and more. As it was mentioned before, Islamic development somehow decreased the development of art, but it never influenced as much as it can be disappeared. Additionally, if we would come to the philosophy, as philosophy developed all over the world, in Azerbaijan it also finds its place. In 8th centuries, all the fields of science, especially exact sciences, were rapidly developing. During the time in Azerbaijan, sciences experienced new ties and influences. Several notable personalities in several sectors of science debuted during the time period. Ubayd Tabrizi, a mathematician, wrote Risalat ul-Hesab, the book of arithmetics, while Najmuddin Ahmad Nakhchiwani contributed comments and notes to Ibn Sina's work on medicine and philosophy. The rapid growth of medicine in Azerbaijan originated from 13th and 14th centuries. That was all for today. Thanks for your attention and have a good day.